Let's see what these organelles look like. I described it a little bit yesterday as we covered every organelle. Talked about sort of how you recognize them. But today we'll see them in a little more detail. So first, in terms of differences between plant and animal cells, the key things to keep in mind in trying to identify whether it's a plant cell or an animal cell is you look at the shape. Plant cells are rectangular or sort of angles to them. Animal cells are generally flexible and roundish or blobby shaped. The thick cell wall around the outside is present in plant cells. It's not in animal cells. They just have the cell membrane as the outermost layer. This large vacuole is generally filled with water in the middle of the plant cell. Animal cell doesn't have that large central vacuole. The other thing is the chloroplast. These green organelles, they are present in plant cells, some plant cells, but they're never present in animal cells. All right, so let's label some diagrams. You have these in your notes. I'll ask you to do that. So to start, we'll start with this arrow here. And I don't really love this drawing, but it's the best one we had, because some things are a little off, but I'll explain that in a minute. So these arrows are referring to this whole thing here, this system of tubes here. Hey, Mom, what do you think that is? Yeah, let's be a little bit more specific, because if you look closely at this ER, you'll see something. What is it, Emma? Nope. See these dots here?
Yeah, rough
That's the rough ER. And rough ER has those little circles on it. What are those circles? They're another structure within the cell we made. They make protein. They're called Brian? Ribosomes. Yes. Those dots are ribosomes. All right, how about this arrow, which is pointing basically to the yellow area that is all throughout the cell? That yellow stuff? What is that, Dean? What's that? No, not the summer, not this. It's all this yellow. Okay. It's filling up most of the cell. Joey? Cytoplasm. Cytoplasm what fills up the cell and holds the other organelles in place. I don't love how this is drawn. It should be a little farther away from the nucleus. And I'm also missing something else, but I don't guess what organelle this is. Grady? No. Flattened stack of pancakes. With delicious drops of 100% pure amber New York State maple syrup. Taylor? Golgi bodies, also called Golgi apparatus. That's the song that we'll hear later by the band Fish, originated from Burlington, Vermont, where I went to school as well. How about this jelly bean? It's a little jelly bean with lots of folds inside of it. Carter? That's the mitochondria. Mighty mitochondria. These next two organelles really are indistinguishable. They just look like little bubbles within the cell. Okay? One of them holds digestive enzymes, one of them can store water or food. They are the lysosome and vacuole. About this little dot, this little blue dot that's labeled here. You saw some over here, but they also are throughout the cytoplasm. Right?
Ribosomes?
Yeah, those are ribosomes. Now this large organelle in the middle is one thing, but this is talking about the outermost layer of this organelle. Joey?
The cell wall.
No, it's within the cell. And this is an animal cell, so it doesn't have a cell wall. Come on. That's the nuclear membrane. This whole thing is the nucleus. And surrounding it, you can see little holes in it, little pores. That's the nuclear membrane. Now this diagram doesn't label other parts, but inside of there would be a nucleolus and chromosomes. Now I really wish this arrow were pointing here, but it's not. So if this arrow were pointing here, we could label it as what? Jaden? Smooth ER. But it's kind of pointing here, and I guess they just label it the ER. This would be smooth ER, that would be rough ER, this would be kind of in between. Finally, this outer layer in purple around the cell. Grace? Not an animal cell. Animal cells don't have a cell wall. Katie? It's the cell membrane. All right. Let's go to plant cell. Lots of the organelles are the same, some are different. Okay, tell me this arrow. It's pointing to this yellowish layer. Alex?
Cell wall.
That's the cell wall. This line is pointing into this big white area. It's in the middle. Dean? That's the vacuole. In the plant cell, there's a large central vacuole that's generally filled with water. Carter?
Oh, water.
Water. I made the analogy yesterday of a beach ball. It's filled up completely with water, it presses against the cell wall, and it holds the cell very rigidly and strong. But if a plant doesn't have enough water, and that central vacuole loses some water, that's what happens when a plant wilts. It doesn't have the strength to hold it up, kind of like if you take some air out of the beach ball, it's all kind of floppy, it's not as rigid anymore. Now how about this line? It's pointing to this thin blue layer. Francesca?
The cell membrane.
That's the cell membrane, yeah. It's inside of the cell wall there.
Are we gonna get points off on the test for incorrect spelling?
Not really. How about this dot? Dean?
The ribosome.
It's a ribosome. About the gray area. All this gray area. Joey?
The cyto.
Yep, cytoplasm. So how about these things? There's 5 of them here. They're around the outside. Katie? No. A lot of people confuse them with mitochondria. The color is important here. Those are chloroplasts. Again, only in the plant cell. They're green because they contain chlorophyll. And this is where photosynthesis takes place in those chloroplasts. This is pointing to the outer layer here. Grace?
Well, does a plant cell have like a nuclear membrane?
Yep, that's it. Nuclear membrane. This is pointing to this area within the nucleus. yep. And nucleus. Special structure within the nucleus that makes the ribosomes. Now this line is pointing just to the overall, this whole thing. Carter?
That is the nucleus.
Yeah, that's the nucleus. Now what if it was pointing to these little things here, which I actually wish it were, but it's not. What are those things? It's not labeled. Al? Aiden?
The chromosomes.
Those would be chromosomes, yeah. Now this line on my drawing is not in the right place. I think on yours it is. It should be pointing to this little oval thing with these lines inside.
Infringement.
Yeah, what is that? Mom? Yeah, that's the mitochondria. How about this? It's usually right near the nucleus. You don't have to be specific in this case, because it's not really clear. Grade?
ER.
That's the ER. You know this one. Look at those delicious drops of syrup. Straight from the maple fields. Francesca?
The Golgi body.
Those are the golden bodies. Any question about what these organelles look like? I have one more diagram. I like this one actually better, but we added it after your notes were printed, so you just have to look at it for a minute. So we look at this, obviously it's a plant cell. What would you call this? Grady?
The ER.
Yeah.
Nucleus.
Yep. What, let's be specific, which ER?
Yeah, the smoothie.
Yes.
How can you tell which
Hold on, we'll get that in 1 second. What about this blue thing? The whole thing, Brian?
The nucleus.
Yep. How about this? Joey? Rough ER. So you know it's a rough ER because it has those specks on it. And what are those specks is the next one, these dots. What?
Like, it's protein.
Yeah, but what's it called? Yeah?
Ribosome.
Ribosomes. Those are the ribosomes. That's why it's rough ER, it has those ribosomes attached. The outermost layer, this plant cell, Francesca,
the cell wall.
cell wall. Everybody's favorite. Making you hungry right now. Carter,
Golgi body.
Golgi bodies. These things. Dean,
Chloroplast.
chloroplast. Grady,
The mitochondria.
mitochondria. This arrow pointing to the inner part here. Alex,
The cell membrane.
cell membrane. This thing. Jake, vacuole. And all this. Brian,
Cytoplasm.
cytoplasm. All right, our last slide for today. Katie, question?
Yeah. So the only way you can tell the chloroplast from that mitochondria is the color.
No. The color is one thing, but like sometimes it won't be a color diagram. So the chloroplasts are more oval, less bean shaped. The chloroplast has like these are like a stack of coins almost, a stack of discs inside of it. Whereas the mitochondria, it's like folds in there. Chloroplasts will only be in plant cells. They're generally around the outside, and they would be green if it's in color. So those are the key things to look for. We make the analogy of a cell is like a city. We can then talk about certain parts of the city and relate them to different cell organelles. So let's imagine this cell city is a plant cell. What would you call the fence around the outside? Grace? So what? Yeah, the cell wall. How about the guardhouse? This gate. What do you think that is, Jake? That's the cell membrane, yes. The cell membrane is what actually controls things moving into or out of the cell. How about the construction site? Making sort of the buildings and the parts that are going to make up this entire cell. Dean?
Ribosomes?
Yeah, those are ribosomes. Most of the cells, the structures of the cell are made mostly of protein. What about this transport company moving things within the cell? So, rating?
The ER.
Yeah. The power plant. Jake? Mitochondria. That's the mitochondria. How about this greenhouse? It's growing all the food for the city. Dean? No. Katie? No. Making, growing food for this city. Brian? Chloroplast, yes. How about this recycling waste disposal plant? Getting rid of things that are not needed or not working properly. Joe?
The light.
Yeah, lysosome. Lysosome. And they have digestive enzymes that break down things that are no longer useful in the cell. How about this government building? Okay? Yeah, that would be like the nucleus. And then last, these storage tanks. Francesca? Those are vacuoles, yes. Good. Any questions about those analogies?